When someone you love dies, you're busy mourning, not practicing how to forge their signature. But in this case, one man allegedly tried to rewrite an entire family's future with a forged marriage certificate, a very suspicious new will that could have stolen more than £500,000 from a teenage girl. Well, we explore how a handwriting expert and a call to a small Mediterranean island blew apart a web of lies. Welcome back to Money, Crimes and Human Minds, the place where we look at the behaviour behind real financial crimes so you can recognise it before it happens to you. To bring you the full picture today, I've scoured the High Court judgment and the international investigation that followed. And here is the story of Kassy Sinar and the man who thought he could outsmart the law with a pen, Cengiz Arif. Now, by the end of this story, you'll know exactly how to spot the paperwork predators before they can bury the truth, alongside the victim. Kassy Sinar was a 46-year-old mother who, after being diagnosed with breast cancer, did the responsible thing. She made a will back in 2022. Her wishes were clear and simple. Her entire estate, valued between $500,000 and $700,000, was to be held in trust for her 16-year-old daughter. At the time, she named her partner, Arif, as one of the executors. However, the relationship had become what the court would later describe as abusive and toxic. And as her health declined in October 2023, she tried to remove Arif from her will entirely, but sadly she passed away before those legal changes were finalised. But after she died, Arif didn't step in as the grieving partner. He suddenly produced two extraordinary bombshell claims. Firstly, he claimed that they had been secretly married in Cyprus back in 2006. Then he produced a brand new will from 2023 that named him as the sole beneficiary, effectively disinheriting Kassy's daughter entirely. Now, this whole story is a masterclass of fraud detection because Kassy's brother, Miles, immediately suspected that something was wrong and had this gut feeling that his sister would never leave her daughter to go without. So we hired a legal team and they started pulling at the threads of Arif's story, and then the whole tapestry unravelled, which started with the Cyprus Supreme Court. They found that not only was there no record of the marriage on the date that he claimed, but that the registrar named on the certificate wasn't even working that day. So the judge officially ruled the marriage a complete forgery. Then investigators found something else. In fact, it was a handwriting expert that analysed the supposed 2023 updated will. And the verdict? Well, the signature was a simulation, a fake, essentially a traced copy of Kassy's real one. Then the court heard something even more disturbing. While Kassy was dying in the hospice, Arif had left the country. In 2026, the case reached the High Court, where the stories that he were told were labelled as preposterous and incredible. Although you can tell me what you would use to describe this situation in the comments. The judge stripped him of his role as executor. He issued this permanent freezing order on the assets and ordered him to pay £206,000 in legal costs. Most importantly, they had completely protected the inheritance that was intended for Kassy's daughter. Now, cases like this highlight something that psychologists and fraud investigators often see after death that we might call the grief gap. So this is the period when families are emotionally overwhelmed, distracted by practical legal paperwork and funerals, and generally reluctant to challenge someone or a member of the family who claims to speak for the deceased. During this period, some fraudsters will rely on this upheaval and emotional turmoil and often silence, particularly because the most important witness, the person who wrote the will in this case, is no longer there to contradict them. Psychologists might note this as narrative control. So if someone's controlling the paperwork and the story and the legal process, they can start to shape what everyone else believes happened. And in cases involving entitlement and manipulation, criminologists sometimes see these traits linked with the Dark Triad. So that is narcissism, manipulation, and a general lack of empathy. Now, the person who ultimately protected Kassy's daughter was her brother Miles. He challenged the story and fought through the courts. And cases like this offer some important lessons. So things like updating your will quickly. If relationships change, make sure they're done and witnessed properly. Question any sudden new wills that are brought out immediately after someone's death. Treat it with caution and make sure it's independently verified. And think about how people use the names of real officials or institutions to add credibility. Always confirm any documents, such as this marriage license, with the issuing authority. If you love understanding how intelligent, experienced people make catastrophic decisions that can lead to crime and want to protect yourself from the same traps, please subscribe. On the next episode, we're looking at lottery scams and how the hope of people across the UK ruined their financial futures. See you next time.